Well, hello and welcome to Jazz Chat with David Friesen. We have a very, very special guest today with us, Suzi Stern. She's a jazz new music singer, songwriter from Austin, Texas, now living in Los Angeles. If any of this information is incorrect, I'm sure she'll correct it when we talk. This is a great review. The Austin American Statesman says of jazz singer Suzi Stern, hear this now, this is really good. Stern has learned the great secret that transcends art, that the voice from the heart is at the center of all virtuosity. That's for instruments, because the voice is an instrument, obviously. That's for all creative artists, simplifying, cutting to the core. What a beautiful statement, and what a beautiful, beautiful singer and person. Suzi, welcome to
Thank you.
Jazz Chat with me, David Friesen.
It's so good to see you and hear your voice and look at you.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we did that wonderful CD of your 7 C's.
7 stars.
Seven stars.
Yeah.
And I know that this was, if I remember correctly, this was a CD that was dedicated to your dad, Harry Stern.
Yeah.
Yes, and who was, in your words, the greatest musician you had ever heard. What instrument did he play?
He was a jazz violinist.
Oh, wow. So he must have studied classical too.
He went to Eastman, and he had a scholarship there. We lived in Buffalo when I was a child, so he studied in Rochester for a while.
Well, that was one of my questions I was going to ask you. How did you start out? Why singing? You could say why not, but probably I want something more specific. Why singing? How old were you? And what kind of influenced you besides your dad?
Oh, those are great questions. My mom was a singer in his bands. He toured with the Vaughn Monroe Band. And then when they were in Rochester, that's where he met my mom, who was doing her own musical thing. She was a double for Deanna Durbin.
Wow.
An old movie star, and she hated Hollywood. So she seized the moment to do this tour of all the Hollywood doubles, to just, with an orchestra. They had all these different people who were playing the stars on the stage, and people would go see the doubles. So she was on tour with this orchestra and met my father, who had his own gig in Rochester, and the rest is history. So I was raised around the importance of art and music in our home. I feel so lucky, my goodness, that I had these parents who not only made that the center of our house. Art, music, dance was very important.
How wonderful.
But every whim I had, my mother and father said, okay, piano lessons, until I did that for 3 years and said, I want to take cello. Okay, cello. So what happened is I was always singing. I sang with my sister from, I don't remember when, little bitty trained monkeys. My dad would teach me, because I was the youngest, the harmony parts, and my sister Sharon had the strong voice. So we would be like, remember the King family? You'd get together and you would sing. And at events, at family reunions, we were always doing little songs in harmony. The first thing he taught me was When Sunny Gets Blue. So I loved that tune as a child.
That's great. And they must have recognized, I mean, you have a beautiful voice, and they must have recognized at that time. Did you train then?
No, actually, my mother always said Sharon was the one with the voice, and that I had a great ear and probably should stick to dance, which was the other thing I was obsessed with, which was ballet. So I thought I will not focus on music. I will focus on my dance. So I went to New York City and studied at Joffrey in American Ballet Theater.
Wow.
That was my passion. I think I wanted to do something my parents did not do. You know,
Wow.
nobody in the family tried such a ridiculous form of art. It's so hard. I thought, I'm going to do that.
Wow.
So
So you were with the American Ballet Company.
I was studying in their school. That's a very different thing.
Did you meet Baryshnikov? Because I think he was president for a while of the American
No,
Ballet.
that he came much later.
Much later? Okay.
Yeah. And I had a knee injury, and Joffrey's doctor said, you're going to have to stop dancing for a year or so because you tore the ligaments in your knees. So I went to Alfred and studied ceramic arts.
Wow.
I'm a kook, you know me. I just try to do too many things.
But you do them so lovely. And I was reading this last night. Your lyrics to my tune, Going Forth.
I love that song, David.
Boy, I love the way you sang it and these lyrics. I've just got to share with the folks a little bit about your lyrics, because you're a poet. I mean, you're a writer, lyricist.
That's actually my main passion. It really is.
Oh, wow.
Even more than dancing is writing lyrics so people can sing them.
Born holding hands with truth, light. Still she's looking for the answers. Why is there such sadness of heart in a world that knows such wonders and such pain? All that remains is love. Help her remember, just a reminder to hold what's precious, hold it. Don't let the weight relax your wings. Love sees us through all things, going forth. That's the first verse. I won't read the second because I think people will understand just from what I wrote how gracious you are with words, you know. It's just beautiful. So you are a multi-talented young lady, great singer. How's it going with the pandemic right now with you? I mean, this is kind of, I had to cancel 2 European tours, March 2020, when we were over there in the midst of it in the Ukraine, and then all 11 concerts in Europe canceled. Yeah. And then this March, last month, I had to cancel that tour also. So I think we're all affected. How are you dealing with it?
I feel really, really actually pretty lucky. You know, I hear from people who's like you, the tours were canceled. I was going through a period just before the pandemic of transitioning from living in Austin. It was like a 3-year process. My husband, George, is a composer. And he came out here before me, and we would fly back and forth. And he can do a lot of his work online. He can do orchestration online. He even oversaw some of his orchestrations in Vienna while he was here in LA, just in our little home studio.
Sure.
He could talk to the conductor real time.
Yeah.
So we were both real lucky to be able to continue doing our work. So I didn't have anything major on the books that I had to cancel. And after people got the hang of Zoom, which I know we're all sick of, I continued my teaching and workshops on Zoom.
I'm thankful for Zoom. I mean, it's something I didn't know about before, but I'm not so sure even if things get back to normal that I'd want to give up Zoom. I think it's very practical in many ways.
It is very practical. It is. And it's made people aware of the fact that they can do this kind of work without getting in their car and driving somewhere or flying somewhere. So I think that can minimize how much people are zooming around, which may be, I don't know, good for the environment, good for stress levels. But to a certain extent, I think I see Zoom weariness on my students' face sometimes, and we'll just have to stop for a minute and talk about what's going on with them.
I'm going to throw an angle at you now, a lot like my chord changes.
Which are amazing.
Moves different ways. I want to go back to when you were a child. You might have said this, and I might have missed it. I'm sorry if I did. You're a jazz singer, are you not?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
And that's what you love. Why jazz?
Oh, I know my dad and mom played a lot of classical music in the house when I was growing up too.
Right.
But my dad was a jazz violinist. He was kind of in the Stefan Grappelli and Joe Venuti, Stuff Smith school. And, you know, and I have a memory of him standing in the middle of the living room looking like he was in absolute ecstasy listening to Ella. And he just, you know, come out of his swoon and go, gosh, she swings, you know. So I wanted to learn how to swing. What did Dad mean by that? You know, I must have been, I don't know, 8, 9 years old. So, you know, I would imitate Ella or Sarah or Carmen, and, you know, he'd say, yeah, that's it. Yeah. You know, he'd encourage me, and I'd like to get that kind of reaction from him. And so swing always made sense to me. Jazz made sense to me. Improvisation was the adventure.
Sure. It's normal life. We improvise every day. Everyone does in this world, you know.
Every minute. I know.
They just don't realize it, I think. What's
driving. It's like you have to improvise in a second when the light changes and somebody's coming at you.
Are there any recordings of your dad playing jazz violin?
Yeah. He was getting old, and my brother-in-law, who's a fine tenor sax player, I think you've met Paul Ostermeyer.
He's wonderful. He was on the album with us.
Yes.
The 7 Stars. I mean, just a wonderful player.
And such a good soul. He said to the family, you know, he's not going to be here much longer. We ought to get him in the studio. And man, David, it made him a nervous wreck. You know, he's used to performing on stage. He did not like being in the studio. So we do have this precious recording of him.
Oh, that's good.
And he was on I'm trying to remember the dude's name, a guy from Buffalo who did a vinyl recording of kind of almost Dixieland, and he had Dad play on that session. And we have that vinyl, which is very, very sweet.
Yeah. How did you meet Sarah Caswell? You mentioned that she's a great friend of yours.
Oh, she's not a great friend or a longtime friend, but in fact, I've got her picture over here. I adore Sarah. I had the good fortune of meeting somebody, you know, about, 12 years ago now, Peggy Stern. Not a relation, same last name.
Yeah, I knew her in New York when I was back there. She sang at the Surf Maid, which was a
jazz pianist. I don't know that she sings, but
she did for. I believe she did. There was a place called in New York on was it on Bleecker, across from the Jazz. Senior moments here.
Oh man, I have more of those.
A place called the Surf Maid, and there'd be solo piano.
Okay.
And then on top of the piano was a pizza pan, and Elvin, different great drummers would come in, and there were brushes there, and they'd play brushes on the pizza pan with Peggy, or Joanne Brackeen would play there sometimes, or Andy Laverne. And that pizza pan was always there, and Mike Stern, different guitarists,
oh my God,
would come in and play sometimes. That's how I met John Stoll, was at the Surf Maid.
Oh, I'll talk to Peggy about that. That's great. She says to say hello to you, by the way. So hello from Peggy.
Yeah, warm hello to her too. I haven't seen her in years, you know, but great respect for her music, you know.
She's a great musician, really.
Yeah, she is.
She wanted to move to Austin from Kingston, New York, because her daughter was there. And I didn't know her, but everyone, when she came to Austin, said, oh, do you know Suzi? You got the same last name. No, but I keep hearing about her. So she called me on the phone and said, I'm coming over. And she walked through the front door like we'd been friends forever. She said, I can tell you're peeps, you know, and we sat on the couch and we're friends forevermore.
And then and your last names are spelled the same, like Mike Stern, Peggy Stern.
Yeah, Lenny Stern,
Suzi Stern. Yeah, but no relationships other than music, huh?
No. I got to sing on Lenny Stern's CD a few years back, but we never met, ever. I just came into the studio and did some backup stuff.
I really like her a lot.
Yeah.
She's a very unusual singer, isn't she?
Wonderful.
What kind of projects are you working on now? What can we see in the future?
I'll tell you about Sarah. So I got invited to do something called the Wall Street Jazz Festival that Peggy Stern was the director of, and it was up in Kingston, New York. And there were all these wonderful people involved with it. Jay Clayton was on the bill. I was singing, I think Dina DeRose was playing piano that time. And just women-led bands. They were in leadership positions, but, you know, they had their bands peopled with men, you know. That wasn't just girl bands, not that. But they were in leadership roles. And I loved the whole concept. And then several years later, Peggy decided to make the move to Austin, and we discussed having something called Lulufest, which was kind of an offshoot of the Kingston thing. So that's been going on now for 10 years, and we've brought a lot of amazing people to Austin. Sarah Caswell was one of them, and I loved her energy. I just loved her. So, and she also came to a series that I was promoting and producing in my home in Austin with Rosanna Vitro. So we spent a lot of time together on that trip. And that was a fun thing. John Stoll was the first person to play that series. We called it Casa Karen because my home was on Karen Avenue, and moved to a bigger place, knocked down walls, got a 9-foot concert grand, and really did it up. And we had people like Helen Sung, Ingrid Jensen played there. And I remember I was coming back from New York, and my husband picked me up and he said, "Do you know who's going to play in our living room?" And I said, "Who?" Now I couldn't imagine. Eddie Gomez's trio. And they enjoyed it so much they came back, I think, 4 times to Austin. There weren't a whole lot of options for quiet concert situations in Austin.
Home concerts are wonderful.
They're wonderful. And we had a beautiful piano at the time, and we could seat 60 people.
Did you bring in Denny Zeitlin?
No, I was wanting to, but then my life changed, and here I am in this tiny little house in Pasadena. And our piano is still in Austin. We're waiting for the day we can ship it back here.
Peggy, Suzi.
This happens to us all the time now.
Does it happen to you sometimes?
Yeah.
I remember being in this very room in my music studio with you, going over lyrics, the going forth and in times past. I remember us talking about those lyrics.
I do too. In fact, it's funny that well, not funny, but interesting you raised Going Forth a minute ago, because that was an interesting project for me. I love the tune. I love the melody. I love the chord changes. And I penned something very quickly that I was really attached to. I thought it was beautiful, and brought that to you, and you loved the other two, but you said, no, this isn't really what I had in mind for this tune. And we talked at length about the direction you wanted to go with it. And I went home and wrote the other ones. You
have a good memory. Yeah. Well, we're honest with each other, but honest respectfully, not honest, being blunt and
well, critical. I think lyrics are extremely sensitive to a composer. Without lyrics, the composition can take the listener to an infinite number of places. When you adhere a poetry to it, the words are directing someone's thought, and it's got to suit the composer's direction.
Well, they work together with the melody, obviously, but in my opinion, the message that a singer is singing is the most important. There's a message there for a reason. Yeah. And you become an actress as well as a singer. You've got to stir people's hearts and make them believe what you're singing. This is why I think singers have to pick their repertoire, things that they can connect with, right?
So well said. And I say this to my young students in workshops all the time. They'll be singing something that has absolutely no connection to their personal reality. They're 16 and they're singing something that maybe a woman in her later years should be singing.
Right. I've done clinics where I share with singers, I say, listen, get your book together. So when you go up to sit in with people, you say, here's the chart, here's a chart, here's a chart. You have your repertoire, everything's there for the musicians. Instead of saying, what do you know? what key can you do it in?
Oh God, yeah.
You know, so everything's prepared. You've got your book, got your repertoire done. I think that's part of the work. Singers are special people. You know, I mean, you're doing so much up there, and you know, if a singer's singing with a band, and too many people take solos in the band, in my opinion, it takes the focus away from the singer. The singer is the most important. And so maybe one solo or half a solo by a musician, but you don't want to take the focus away from a singer.
That's sweet. I think it depends on the band. I do the type of music. You know, I like to, in certain bands, freer jazz, more obtuse stuff, maybe even being a vocalist without lyrics. I like to be considered one of the instrumentalists and not actually a centerpiece that, you know, the audience is specifically looking at, just one of the members in that conversation. So in that case, you know, I always invite my players solo as long as you want until you're through saying what you have to say.
You will have great players, but the singer has that charisma. She's up front. Something about the voice people adhere to. It's just the way it is, in my opinion.
Yeah, the voice is something else, isn't it?
Something else.
We all have one, and it hits to the heart more than anything. Hopefully,
I think so. It's people ask if I sing, and I say yes, I do. I sing from my heart on my instrument. So that's where singing takes place, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the heart, just like this wonderful quote about you. You've learned that secret that transcends art, that the voice from the heart is at the center of all virtuosity. It's a beautiful statement. That's a great quote. And it's lovely. It's true. It's about you, Suzi.
Thank you.
This interview has been great. We could talk forever. I need to ask you what I ask all if you heard the Sarah Caswell interview, you know probably what I'm going to ask you. I want you to leave us with some comments of hope and encouragement to the people that are watching. Hope in a broken world that we live in right now. What can you share that will offer encouragement and hope?
This has been unprecedented, at least in my lifetime. I think about people like my parents, my grandparents who went through pandemics. They went through World War I, my grandparents, and World War II. And I think it's humbling and it can be extremely heartbreaking and make people feel desperate. Like, is humanity ever going to figure this out? On the other hand, I think this pandemic has been amazing at making people look at the gifts they had that they took for granted before this. Little simple things like being able to hop on a plane and go see your children in another state, or play music together in one room with people. And the appreciation is so heightened now that I hope it's going to stick with people from here forth. And I don't know, I think the world goes like this. It does. And I think it was so hard last year in so many ways. I think we're going to feel an upward sense of awareness and consciousness that is heightened. And this, I hope. I don't know. And I think as artists, we have a really special, important role, especially as a lyricist. The things that we say in our material, in our music, should help people grasp onto things that are more important, essential than fodder. I don't know. You know, if you have the position to be in the arts and share your music with people, elevate. You know, it's an important gig.
Thank you for those beautiful words. And sharing those thoughts, Suzi, with us. And thanks again for your support with my new YouTube channel, Jazz Chat with David Friesen. And it's been delightful. It's been wonderful hearing you share these little stories and anecdotes, and being very gracious. Once again, Suzi Stern, an amazing singer. Thank you so much, Suzi.
Thank you, David. I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon again.
Yeah, sooner than not. Yes.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Stay healthy. Bye.
Love pure as a child was once a child.